Welcome to week 4 of the Women's History Month edition of Black Girl Magic Book Chat. This is the penultimate episode or chat, which just means that after this, I've got one more. So as you all know, I'm Larissa. I'm the coordinator of the African American Resource Center. And this month, I've been sharing and reading and sharing with you all stories written by Black women to honor Women's History Month. This week's book was really, really good, y'all. So I read We Are All So Good at Smiling by Amber McBride. And I showed y'all hold on, I'm trying to pull it up. I showed you all the cover last week. I want to show you again because it's good. It's pretty. Like, look at the colors, look at the flowers and the butterflies. And what I really like about this cover is that it gives you a sort of fantastical sort of feel, which really goes well with this book because this book definitely has a very fantastical sort of feel. So it works really well. So, like I said, I really enjoyed the book this week. I cried a little bit. It was very haunting. It was very lyrical. She wrote it in verse, so it was a narrative in verse, and so it looks sort of like poetry as you're reading it. So it is sort of a quick read because it's written that way. But there's so much meat in it, y'all. So this book follows two teenagers. I think that they're 18. I know, yeah, late teenage years. And they're called Whimsy and Fairy. They meet at the beginning of the book, of the story, because they're both in a psychiatric institution. Both are suffering from clinical depression. Both are dealing with severe trauma. And the kicker is that both of them don't understand that they've known each other before. So when they meet, they think, I have a connection with this person, but I've never met them. But they have. And that's kind of a thing that we get and as we go through this story. And Whimsy is kind of our main character. She's the one we follow the most. We kind of follow her the most. So Whimsy calls herself, Whimsy's a conjurer, a practitioner of hoodoo. And she says that Fairy is a fae, and she describes him as having green hair and like gossamer wings on his back, like really light sort of wings on his back that really only people with magic can see. And Whimsy, her mom, also has some magic in her, and she can erase memories. And a decade ago, something happened that her mom wanted everybody to forget, including Whimsy. And Whimsy's now remembering. There's flashes of things that she's getting, and she wants to understand them. And one of the main things that she notes is about the forest and garden that's at the end of her cul-de-sac, her block or whatever. And this forest holds a lot of secrets, and it holds a lot of trauma for her. And so one day after they've gotten out of the hospital, Fairy ventures into this forest and he gets lost. He gets stuck, really. But their parents are kind of like, where's my kid? He's gone. So Whimsy, while her parents are out, one day she goes out to the forest to try to find him and bring him back. And what happens next is a series of tests led by a multitude of fairy tale and folktale characters. There are several, and I do not remember every single one, but I know there was like Anansi the Spider and Baba Yaga. So those types of characters from African folktales. And then you've got Snow White and Ursula, who come from, are they Dutch or German? Like, what are the origins of those fairy tales? I cannot remember. I should have looked it up. I'm sorry. But the kind of things that we know, right? Snow White, Ursula, those sort of characters, they all come in various ways that align to the stories we know of them. And they help them navigate this forest. And the goal in this forest is to escape the clutches of sorrow. So sorrow is our villain. And so in all of this, what we see is two teenagers who are really battling sadness and depression. They are battling anxiety and panic. and the sort of trauma that comes from losing somebody when you're young and you don't really know what that means. All you know is it hurts. And I obviously don't want to tell you every little thing. So we do find out what happens to their siblings, and it's traumatic and it's devastating, right? And so as they navigate this forest, that comes back to them. And so each of these tests sort of focus on the things that have kind of added to what has happened to them. So stuff like being the only black kids in school. And I went to a school that was predominantly black, predominantly African American. So I do not have the experience of going to a school where there's only a couple of other people who look like me. But I have worked in spaces where I've been a part of staffs where only a couple of other people look like me. And that can be hard, especially when you're a teenager and you are trying to figure out who you are, who other people are. And people use that difference as a way to harm you, be it with words, be it with their hands, be it with ostracization. What I can't anyway. Be it where they kind of ostracize you because of that difference. So they talk about that and kind of how that just again added to what they were already going through and what they were already feeling. They also talk about kind of being bullied for things that they shouldn't have been, like liking nature and playing in the dirt sometimes. And then just also being the siblings of people who are gone. And there's, I don't know, you know how on TV, maybe somebody's mom dies or somebody's brother gets killed or something like that, or somebody's cousin goes missing. I don't know. But the students in the school kind of point out that student whose family member or friend is gone, and they start looking at them a little bit differently because death or something close to it has touched them in a way that they don't understand. And so the only reaction is to pick at it, right? And so this has happened to these kids in some way. And so we see as we go through this forest kind of all these little things that have, like I said, added to added to them. And those are the types of things that they showcase. So the book is a little haunting. Like I said, it's written in verse, and so it reads so lyrically. And there's something about it like that is beautiful in the way that somebody can write about things like this with grace and elegance. I think Amber McBride does a beautiful job of it. There's also something that stood out to me. In one of the chapters, Fairy's father tells him to get over all of his sorrow because black boys don't get to feel their pain. And I think it may have said something closer to they don't get to feel their feelings. But it, right? Whatever whichever way he said it, the sentiment is the same. Um, it is a false narrative that we've normalized, that black people, boys especially, men especially, but girls and women too, that we're not allowed to be unwell, that we are not allowed, that if we have feelings that are inconvenient, we should not talk about that. Um, but we do have feelings that are inconvenient. Sometimes we are unwell. Mental health struggles are everywhere, y'all. And having those struggles and then trying to get support or finding therapy or any other way um, to get support is not something that is experienced just by white people. And I say that specifically to say that it's a phrase I've heard before multiple times where you kind of get, and I will, sorry, elders, sometimes elders will kind of, well, that's a white people thing, or give it to God, if that, that's a common refrain in the African American community. But it's not, right? Like, black people are struggling. People are committing suicide at alarming rates, and our young people are dealing with a world that's more accessible where the cruelty and danger in our world is more prevalent, at least in the way that we can see, because this world has been cruel for a long, long time, especially for people who are darker skinned. But now it's somewhere where we can see it all the time. We can touch it all the time. There's almost no way to get away from it. And that affects us, right? And even outside of that, just the worlds that we live in, the the pressures that we're under to succeed in whichever way that looks like for people, um, the isolation that our children have felt, or our adults too, especially after COVID, after the height of COVID. Um, it's hard, y'all. And so this book really highlights the need for support, and it highlights the need for community, um, as one way to fight our battles and to continue to be well. Because what we learn in this book is that Fairy and Whimsy are struggling, and they're struggling alone. But once they get together and they meet these people who are there to support them through their journey, they make it through. And that says something, right? Community is so important, and it is how we make it through. So like I said, I feel like I rambled a lot because this was a book that if I feel like I told a lot of it, and if I said anything more, I would have, given every single thing away. And this is a book that I really would like for y'all to read because I thought it was lovely, even if it was pretty unconventional. Um, so I thought it was great. I will leave you with this quote that was in the towards the back of the book, um, and I really liked it. So it's, do you understand now, reader? There is someone out there rooting for you. You are not alone in any forest. We are rooting, cheering for you to live and thrive. It's beautiful, and we are. So I will leave you with that sort of somber note. I'll see you next week for my final book chat. Until then.